Bass Drop Keys, your friendly neighborhood Negro, and a rookie mycologist. In today's video, we're going to continue the Spore Boomr kit series. So if you're watching this video and you decide to get something from the website, use the code BassDropKeys. That will give you a 10% discount on any order at norspore.com. In the last video in this series, you saw me put two different max shield bins in the fruiting conditions. If you recall, I spawned to bulk two different max shield bins, one using the CVG that I made myself and one using the Spore substrate. In the last video, we found out that both of the bins was free of contamination, so we put both of them in the fruiting conditions. Alright, so now it's 8 days later, March the 17th, and the first bin that we're looking at is the one with the CVG in it. As you can see, we already have some pins forming. I have multiple pins all over the bin right now that's forming, that's sticking out, which is really cool. I always love this part of the process because once you start seeing those pins, you know mushrooms are not going to be too far behind. The bin that we're looking at right now is the one with the Spore substrate. You can see that there is one or two pins that's showing. As a matter of fact, the first pin that I noticed is right here. Make sure you guys remember this first pin because later on in the video, you're going to see exactly what happens with it. So even though there's a lot less pins showing right now on the Spore substrate, you can tell just by looking at it that the mycelium is a lot more healthier in this bin than the one with the CVG in it. As far as the pin production, the CVG bin is ahead, but as far as how healthy everything is looking, you have to give it to Spore in this one. Alright, so now it's March the 20th, 3 days later, and once again the first bin that we're looking at is the one with the CVG in it. You can see that the mushrooms are getting bigger and bigger. You can also see that we have a lot more pins covering almost the entire bottom of the substrate, which is awesome. I do want to mention right here that I am using a light for 6 hours a day. From midnight to 6 a.m. I do have a light inside of here and I'm using 65 watts. That's it. Remember, with mushrooms, you don't need a lot of light. Light helps give them a little color, but also help them know what direction they need to grow in. Now we're going to look at the max shield bin with the Spore substrate, and you can see that we have a lot more pins growing on top of the substrate now. Remember, just 3 days ago, there was only one or two. Now, look how many there is. Also, that very first pin that I pointed out to you guys just a minute ago previously, this is how it looks right here. That's crazy, right? It's already looking crazy. But the mycelium on the Spore is just looking so healthy. It almost looking like crystals sitting on the top of the substrate. Amazing. Seems to me that the mycelium is getting more nutrients out of the Spore substrate than out of my CVG. But 3 days later, March the 20th, everything is healthy. Let's keep it going. Alright guys, so it's March the 23rd, 3 days later, and you can see that I'm spraying my hands with the 70% iso alcohol. You can also see now that I have the bin open that we have some mushrooms that we need to harvest. This bin is the one with the CVG in it. So you can see we obviously have mushrooms that has the veil torn on them, or they're just about to tear, so I need to harvest these mushrooms. Also, you can see that some of the mushrooms have already sporulated, meaning that they dropped their spores. Those black spots that you see on the top of the caps, that's not the ordinary color of the mushrooms. That's actually spores that's on top of there. But at any rate, like I said, I'm only going to harvest the mushrooms that are ready. I'm not going to take them all. The perfect time to harvest the mushroom is just when the veil underneath is just about to tear, or when the veil tears but the mushrooms haven't sporulated yet. That's the perfect time to harvest your mushrooms. Oh, and if you don't know how to harvest mushrooms, I either do the pull and twist method where I just pull on it a little bit and twist it, and a lot of times it'll come off. But lately what I've been doing is I've been using my scalpel. I've been cutting it right underneath the bottom base of the mushroom, right at the substrate, and it comes off pretty easily. So I got all the mushrooms harvested that we're gonna do out of this bin today. Let's take a look at them. Man, don't they look beautiful? And look at that bottom blue bruising. So beautiful. Man, I really love how the mushrooms look whenever you harvest them. And then after you dry them, to me, they lose all the bag appeal. So I gotta ask some veteran mycologists, how do they dry their mushrooms and still have them keep their shape? Because whenever I harvest mine, I think they look great. But whenever I dry them, they end up looking all shriveled up and everything. And speaking on drying, to dry these mushrooms, I'm using my Presto dehydrator. With this Presto, I have more room than I do with the other dehydrator that I have. And these mushrooms are a little bigger, so I'm going to use the Presto this time. For any veteran mycologist that's watching this right now, help me out in the comments section. How are you guys drying your mushrooms and still having them keep their shape and their form? I've been playing around with the settings on, how high or how low to use as far as the temperature. I've been trying out 130 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 hours, for 7 hours, and they still shrivel up. The only time that they didn't is whenever I did it the first time, and I believe I did that one at 158 for 5 hours, so it was a higher temperature for a shorter amount of time, and it kept the shape a lot better than it has ever since I changed. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or am I doing anything wrong? If there's any veteran mycologist that's watching this, and you're able to dry your mushrooms and still have them keep their shape, help me out in the comments section. But at any rate, like I said, I used the Presto dehydrator in order to dry out these mushrooms. I did have to cut the cap off of some of them to get them to fit, but that's no problem. As I just said a second ago, I'm going to dry these out at 130 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 hours. I'll see you guys when they're finished drying. Alright, so now the mushrooms are finished drying. Let's check them out. And you guys can see what I was talking about having them keep their form more than they are. But at any rate, let's go ahead and weigh up what we have. So after I dried them, we ended up with 25.4 grams of dried mushrooms. That's almost an ounce. I'll take it. Alright, so now it's 24 hours later, March the 24th. And what you're looking at here is the mushrooms that I left in the bin yesterday. You can now see that they're ready to be harvested. So I'm just going to go through and do the same thing that I did yesterday. The main thing that I'm noticing from these mushrooms that's different than the ones from yesterday is these are smaller and the stems are more skinny than the ones that we harvested yesterday. But at any rate, they're ready to be harvested, so that's what we're doing right now. So I got them all harvested now. Take a look at them. So you can see what I'm saying about these mushrooms are skinnier and smaller than the ones from yesterday, but we was able to get more mushrooms, so I'm happy about that. I'm doing the same process that I did yesterday as far as drying them. Same temperature, same time, same everything. Nothing's different. After they got finished drying, I weighed them up, and today I ended up with 17.8 grams of dried mushrooms. When you add that to what we got yesterday, the first flush for the CVG bin ended up being a total of 43.2 grams. That's how much dried mushrooms we got from yesterday and today. 43.2 grams. Hell yeah. All right, so let's switch over to the Spore bin. It is still March the 24th. On the 23rd, I just showed you the CVG bin. And here on the 24th, we got finished with the CVG bin. This is how the Spore bin looked on March the 24th. So you can tell by how the mushrooms look that tomorrow we're gonna have to do the harvest. Look at the first pin. This big one right here, don't it look crazy? But all the other ones, they're looking like standard mushrooms. I mean, look at this mycelium growth. It looks like it's been snowing in here or something. Now look at these mushrooms and compare them to the ones that I just harvested in the CVG. You can tell that the growth on these mushrooms is better than the ones on the CVG. Like I said previously in the video, I think that the Spore substrate is giving the mycelium and the mushrooms more nutrients than they're getting with just my regular CVG. And so yes, in the CVG, they grew one day faster, but you can clearly see that these are the more fuller, the more healthier mushrooms. And if you look closely, you can see that there's even more mushrooms with the North Spore bin than the CVG bin. Alright, so it's 24 hours later, March the 25th. Let's take a look at the mushrooms and see how they look now. Well, look at this. You can see that the veil has torn on a lot of the mushrooms, and on the other ones it's just about to tear. So this is going to be the perfect time to harvest the mushrooms. Look how beautiful and full all the mushrooms look. You can see that there's more like bundles of mushrooms in this particular bin. There's a lot more mushrooms in this bin, and like I was saying previously, these mushrooms are fuller, the stems are thicker, they're bigger, and just overall just more healthy in every way. And check out this first pin right here. Man, oh man, oh man, what a crazy looking mushroom. Nature is crazy, but I love it. So obviously you guys know what we gotta do. It's time to harvest this bin. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna harvest all the mushrooms around that first pin, and I'm gonna do that first pin last. So I'm doing the same thing, except with this one, I'm not doing the pull and twist technique. I'm having to use my scalpel and cut them at the base in order to get these mushrooms out of here. You guys can't see it, but there's a little piece of table that's behind the bin, and I'm just sitting the mushrooms right there. You'll see why in just a second. So I'm just going through here and I'm getting all the mushrooms, even the ones that are small. Whenever I look at them closely, I can see that the veil is about to tear. So I go ahead and harvest those too. And finally, once I have all the mushrooms around the first one harvested, now I'm going to go ahead and harvest this big one. Man, oh man, oh man. Look at this monster mushroom. Attack on Titan looking mushroom. Man, this thing's crazy. So cool. But at any rate, let me turn around the camera, and now you guys can see what I was doing with all the mushrooms that I harvested. What I do now is I harvest all the mushrooms and I'll lay them down just like this. And then once I have them all harvested, I'll come back and I'll use my scissors to cut off that bottom piece that has substrate on it. I just cut it off and then I put it inside my bowl. And then you guys know once we do that, we're gonna put them in the dehydrator. So that's how I do my harvest. I cut them out of the bin. I lay them on the table right here. Once I have them all harvested, I come back with the scissors, cut off that piece that has the substrate on it. Speaking on that, check this out. Isn't this cool? I'm gonna cut off that piece that has the substrate on it. Now look at it. Right before your eyes, you see how it's turning blue? So crazy. All right, so now I have all the mushrooms trimmed up. Let's take a look at them. Oh man. These mushrooms look beautiful to me. I don't know what you guys think. I think they look great. Well, all right, what I want to do now is I want to add some more value to this video. We've already done how to clone a mushroom video right here on the channel. But for anybody who hasn't seen that, let me go ahead and give you a little quick demonstration. And a lot of you guys had the same idea as me. A lot of the comments that I got was, man, I hope you clone that mushroom. And so you guys had the same thought as me. Since this is a monster mushroom, I definitely want to clone it. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. We've already done how to clone a mushroom video right here on the channel. But for anybody who didn't see that, I'm going to give you a quick demonstration on how easy it is to clone a mushroom. So as you guys can see, I'm in my steel air box. This is the steel air box from North Spore. It's called the Knock Box. If you want to get one for yourself, northspore.com. Use the code BassDropKeys to get 10% off. But all you want to do to clone a mushroom is really easy. I have some agar cups right here. I'm going to crack open the lid to make sure it's easy for me to open once we do this. All you want to do is you want to take the mushroom that you're going to clone and you're going to tear it in half with your hands. Once you do that, your scalpel should be already flame sterilized. If you haven't done that, make sure you go ahead and do that. After that, you want to cut a piece of tissue out of the middle of the mushroom, about the size of a grain of rice. Once you do that, you want to put it in the middle of your agar cup. You want to move quickly and move with a purpose. You don't want to have the agar cup open longer than it needs to be. We want to try to eliminate the possibility of having this be contaminated. And once you put the tissue in the middle of the agar cup, you close it up and bam. That's how easy it is to clone a mushroom. Once you see some healthy mycelium growth on your agar, You can take some of that healthy mycelium and transfer it to other cups. You can also use dishes if you want to, petri dishes, that's fine. Once your cup is colonized, you can cut it into wedges. Transfer the agar to grain. Let the grain colonize like you normally do, spawn the bulk, and repeat the process. Since this is my first monster mushroom, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to isolate it as best I can. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll definitely be covering that later on the channel. But at any rate, that's how easy it is to clone a mushroom. Now what we gotta do is we gotta dry all the mushrooms that we just harvested out of the North Spore bin. Now for all of these mushrooms, I actually had to use every tray that came with the dehydrator. There was a lot of mushrooms that we harvested. Now as far as the time and the temperature, I did the same thing that I did before. Oh no, I did change it. I put it on 135 instead of 130. I put it on 135 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 hours. But now that we have all of the mushrooms dried, let's put them on the scale and see what our dry weight is for this first flush from the North Spore bin. And so whenever we weigh it up, we end up with a total of 54.7 grams of dried mushrooms. Oh yeah, hell yeah. That's almost 2 ounces, so I'm super happy with that. So for the first flush out of the North Spore bin, we ended up with 54.7 grams of dried mushrooms. For the first flush in my CVG bin, we ended up with 43.2 grams of dried mushrooms. So if you was to compare everything that we cover in the video, the North Spore bin gave us more mushrooms, healthier mushrooms, more fuller and robust mushrooms, more healthy mycelium. The only thing that the CVG did is we was able to harvest 1 day sooner than the North Spore, but I don't think that really makes a difference. What makes a difference is having the best mushrooms that we can have. So the total amount of dried mushrooms that I ended up, both bins included, is 97.9 grams of dried mushrooms. I'm just gonna call it 98 grams. I can't tell you guys how super excited I am about this. If you've been following the channel, then you know the trials and tribulations that we had to get here. I showed you the amount of times that I got contamination, but I told you guys no matter what, we wasn't gonna give up and we was gonna make it to harvest. That just goes to show you that growing, no matter if you're a 420 creator like me, or you grow mushrooms or whatever you grow, growing something or creating something is a lot like life. You may have some tough times, it may get hard, you may get knocked down, but if you get back up, have some patience, show some resilience, you can definitely get to wherever you want to get to. I mean, look at me. I'm just an old country boy from Georgia. I never had any experience making content, making videos or anything until I started. Now, because of you guys, I have a bona fide career as a content creator. Now, before I get out of here, you guys have probably noticed the sweet shirt that I'm wearing. This is the Rookie All Over shirt. If you want to support me and the channel, come over to the merch website, therookiemycologist.com. I have some great shirt designs, mugs, hoodies, slides, stickers, and I'm adding new stuff all the time. Also, before I get up out of here, obviously you guys know that my channel was deleted and that sucks. If you're interested in seeing all of my past mycology videos and all of my future mycology videos, I'm still making videos. Come over to my website. If you're one of the thousands of people who said that they started growing because of me, or I helped you out in some way as far as mycology, come over to my website, bassdropkeys.tv. Support your boy. I still am making mycology videos, so come over and check it out, bassdropkeys.tv. I really appreciate all of you. And until I see you guys the next time, I'm out, guys. Much love.